Anytime you want people inside the company to really pay attention to something, say it outside the company. And what I've come to think about AI is this is our chance to bring our engineering values to the mainstream.
In this episode, Charity Majors, the founder of Honeycomb, shares what the new bottlenecks of development are now that the cost of generating code is basically zero. We talk about taste, judgment, and observability as validation, and how to lean into fast feedback loops so you can ship faster without breaking stuff. You had this thing that now the cost of generating lines of code is effectively zero. What are the new bottlenecks for developing software?
Yeah, my friend Boris Tane posted something. Did
he's
you read
great.
that piece about it's the end of the software development lifecycle? All of the middle stages are being compressed. An agent doesn't know what stage it's in. It's just, he's like, and the only stage that remains is monitoring. And monitoring needs to evolve because it's actually the substrate that all the stages lead up to that, right? It is the validation. It is the source of truth. It is the source of meaning. So over the past few days, I love Boris is also, full disclosure, like a friend. He founded Baseline, which is another observability 2.0 startup. And I think by the time this podcast comes out, he will have announced he's doing a new thing with agentic AI. So Boris and I tend to have very, very simpatico philosophies and approaches and everything. And when I think back to what inspired, what drove us to found Honeycomb, right? It came out of our experience at Parse. And Parse was a lot like Heroku, mobile backend business service back in the early 2010s. And we had over 1 million mobile apps running on Parse at the time I left. Facebook shut it down after the acquisition. I will never forget them. Assholes. They didn't have to do that, but they didn't. Anyway, this is not. But one of the challenges of operating software at Parse was running 1 million mobile apps. We never get to talk to those developers. We don't know what they intended. We have to understand that code from first principles. We have to operate it from first principles. And I feel like right now, I am shocked that everyone is so shocked that they have to understand lines of code from first principles. I'm like, oh, that is not a transition that everyone went through. It's something that we went through at Parse, and it seeded Honeycomb. But the other thing I wanted to say was, I think it was just yesterday, maybe it was Sunday, my friend David Poll, Poll, he's now Senior Director of Engineering at GitHub. He was also at Parse. He posted this great piece about how, I think the title is, code review was never about finding bugs, right? Because one of the things that Boris was arguing in his piece was that code review, it's antiquated, get rid of it. It's just it's the point of friction. It's not adding any value, and I'm like, yeah, preach it, brother. Dave was like, wait. That's not what code review is supposed to be about. David was on that. So I was on the infrastructure side at Parse. David was on the APIs team, right? And David and the whole team would spend hours debating whether or not a PI, because it was about the mental model, right? It's about, do we let this into our product or not? Can people reason about this? Does this make sense? Is it coherent? It's like that. Look, code review needs to evolve. No questions, right? We've been overloading code review. And one of my favorite lines from his piece was something about, I think the word code in code review gives people the wrong assumptions or preconceptions. It's not about the code. It's about the product, right? Which, as soon as he said that, I was like, oh, yeah, that makes a lot of sense. We're using code review to do so many jobs. And so recently, one of the journalism sites featured these two journalists who, with no technical experience, they vibe coded a Slack clone, right? Clone of Slack, all the same functionality. And people in Silicon Valley start freaking out, there's the software. And what is so fascinating is that I looked at that experiment and I just laughed. I was like, yeah, but can it scale? Is it Can you operate it? Can it run billions of you? I just laughed. I was like, ha ha ha, right? No, there's still a job for software. AI is great at generating, it brings it up or down to the medium, right? That's what it does. It doesn't not reasoning. It's bringing it to the most common average level. So if you're below
Mm,
average, cool. But like the more you know about a domain, you apply AI to it, the more you're like, oh, this is not good. Right? But my friend David Paul would have looked at that same Slack, generation thing and said something like, yeah, of course they can vibe code up a clone of Slack, but the hard part of building Slack was never adding features it's the reason Slack is so cool is because of all the
mm.
intent, all the design decisions, all like years of compounding decisions about how to make this intuitive, friendly, all of these things. That's the word. And so I think I know I've been like 7 minutes straight. I've been rambling about this, but like I think
This
that's
is
so
great.
shocking on both sides, right?
Yeah, I think that makes total sense. Like the Slacker, I was listening to I think Stuart Butterfield talking about how they thought about like the mention. It's like, are you sure you want to mention this will notify 73 people across 5 time zones? Are you sure you want to do this sort of stuff? Feels like maybe if that already exists in like in every product, then the AI will, say that you need that. Probably now it would, but
Yeah.
at the time when they were starting out,
Great products require more than just more and more and more and more and more. They're about editing down.
yeah. What do you think it is that I mean? I think you kind of touched on it, but why? Like, if theoretically these, the models are going to get better at generating code, the code's going to get better, solve problems more accurately. What is it that the human brings that the LLM won't? I guess.
I think taste, taste, judgment. I am one of the ways I think about this is through the lens of durable code versus disposable code.
Mm,
There's no
yeah.
question to me that we are witnessing the emergence of a powerful new method of development. It is far less clear to me that this will work for all types of code, right?
Yeah.
Uh, and I think that from both extremes, both the reliability, the dependability extreme, like a quip that I have been saying for at least 15 years is the closer you get to laying bits down on disk, the more paranoid you have to be. Operating systems, databases, devices, you it's and a point that a front-end friend made of mine is that it's actually not about bits on disk, it's about dependability. It's about dependency stacks, right?
Mm,
How many things depend on you being predictable and resilient and not changing too fast, right? And I think
hmm,
users too, from the other angle, nobody wants to use a Slack that is subtly changing from day to day, you know? And I think that, like, the great frontier that I haven't heard many people really intelligently speak to yet is, obviously, disposable code is great for rapid iterations and trying things and blah, 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 but the way that we know how to build maintainable, reliable software that people love is by taking what is known to be good and iterating on it in small, frequent changes. So how do we cross from one to the other? Like, that's an open question because I don't know. I don't know. But, like, it's very clear to me that that's a really big question, and where does the human where are humans needed? I mean, it's very easy for machines to generate code. In some ways, you could almost just squint and be like, "This is this is very similar to the advent of compilers," right? We don't even think about what's there are, like, 20 people in the world who think about what's happening when C code meets hardware, right? It's still really important, but it's not something everyone has to think about or care about. Same goes for infrastructure. When I am just old enough that my first job had the title of sysadmin. I was one of the last sysadmins, right? And then we got into this whole like, ops is a synonym for toil, fuck ops, blah, blah, blah. And fuck those guys, first of all. Turns out operational excellence is one of the lingering differentiators, I think.
Yeah. I think I saw Sam Lambert posting about that as well. But
Oh, almost
like
certainly.
ops.
Sam is usually right
Yeah.
about these things. I mean, he's an infrastructure guy, right? But right. I was going to say,
Yeah.
people who are old enough to have had to use and understand infrastructure are hands down better at debugging systems in general than people who are younger. I'm just going to say, people who haven't had to learn how under. And yet, this hasn't really stopped younger generations from being profoundly, productive, successful. So,
Yeah. So it's just like the layers, I guess, of like if
layers.
you, yeah.
I do not see a path to a world where we don't need people who understand systems and technology. One of Adam Jacob is one of the people who I respect most in this world. He was the CTO of Chef, System Initiative, which just gone down. Most startups fail. And I feel like Adam Jacob has really been beating the drum recently on LinkedIn about talking to our tribe, right? Speaking to ops, infra, DevOps, engineers, just being like, this is me speaking now, but like, I feel like you could be very cynical about AI and it's just slop until sometime in 2025. Now it's clear that it is going to be better than the median engineer at generating logic, if it isn't all. But one of my favorite Adam Jacob quotes is something about, we are actually very fortunate that this is a technology problem. Unlike manufacturing, technology problems require technologists. So his advice to everyone is, don't take refuge in being cynical, right? Lean the fuck in. Learn it, level up, learn its rough edges, learn to be literate, and you can still be cynical, but your critique isn't going to land, or nobody should listen to you if you're just like ruling it out and not touching it, right? So it is a technology problem. They're going to need technologists, but we need to learn it.
Yeah, and to make it clearer, how technology and manufacturing, the reason that technology is different to manufacturing is that because it's like you have to create like new ideas? Is it like what?
Yeah, it's a different substrate. The rate of change is a lot faster. Manufacturing is very predictable and abstractable, I would say. Physical objects don't mutate. I think anyone who can say with confidence where we will be in 5 years, 3 years, even 2 years is full of it. There is, like, literally just like they are on hot air. They might be right, but they are just speculating, right? A year ago, I was giving the closing keynote with my coworker, Fred Hebert at SRECon. And our big argument to SREs for why they should learn AI was so that your critique will land. Basically, you can slow things down better if you pretend to like it, And at some point in the last 3 to 9 months, I realized that that's actually not, I don't think that's a legitimate critique anymore. I mean, I don't know who said this, but when the facts change, I change my mind. What do you do, sir?
Yeah.
I don't think I'm the only one who's had that experience in the past year.
Yeah, it's it's been a wild ride. I think you've also talked a lot about like how you've got this quote that validation is the new test in prod.
Yeah. It's all about intent, right? Declare intent. Maybe you generate code. Maybe you write it. You test the intent. You deploy it. And you validate your intent. Honestly, I will be honest. I don't know how many people listen to this podcast. I'm hoping it's a small number. No offense.
It's not a big number.
I don't want people to lose their jobs. If I was God, I would slow the world down. But I found my way into embracing our new AI overlords by realizing that I've spent the last 10 plus years very publicly telling people, do this, do that, instrument your code as you write, right? Uh, uh, Instrument it with arbitrarily wide structured data blobs. Use feature flags. Use progressive deployments. Do canary testing. Automate rollbacks. Look at your fucking data after you ship it. Is it doing what you meant it to do? Is it doing anything else that looks weird? Like close the loop. This is the fastest, easiest, best way to find problems before you're like, and I've come to think of that as the eat your vegetables lecture. And one of the questions I asked myself was, why is it that I hate the term thought leadership, but whatever. Why is it that our quote unquote thought leadership has been so much more successful than our product? Why is it that people don't go, yeah, that's what I want, and immediately go sign up for Honeycomb? Because the opinions built the product and the product built the opinions are the same thing, right? And what I've realized is the eat your vegetables lecture, what percentage of teams have all those tools and get to work that way in fast feedback loops? 1%? 5%? 8%? I've never heard a credible estimate in the double digits. It's the 1%, right? And other people might read those and go, oh, yeah, that would be great. I want to go to there, right? Or maybe I'll put one of these things. It's not within reach, or they'd be doing it. They're not stupid. Some of the best engineers in the world work at these companies with 2-month, 6-month deploy pipelines, right? Because it's harder. It's actually harder to work that way. It requires more of you. And what I've come to think about AI is this is our chance to bring our engineering values to the mainstream. To make it accessible. A quote that I found myself using a lot lately is that AI is like alcohol. It is both the cause of and solution to all of life's problems, right? Right? Like that.
That's a good one.
But it is both. Instead of us, do this, do that. Nobody cares what we're telling them to do. Now it's competitive pressure, right? From other products, from other companies, from ones that are moving faster, from their board, from their execs. Now it's a competitive advantage to have these guardrails because most systems have evolved to accept a certain rate of change. And it feels fast to us. It is fast. It's fast for humans. It's a lot to bear for humans. AI is 10x, 100x, 1000x faster. And our systems are held together at this rate of change through a variety of stupid human tricks. Right? Intuition. The person who's been there for 15 years. The documentation that's out of date or isn't written down, but someone knows where to look. Right? And when that rate of change tips up, all the duct tape flies off the bus. You can't, and so we need, like David Pohl said, we have got to find new ways of reviewing code that don't rely on humans to catch bugs with their eyeballs, because actually we were never really good at that. We've got to find new ways of deploying code that allows us to flip feature. All these things are no longer nice to have. It has required so much engineering skill and discipline over long timelines to bring this to a large corporation. It is virtually impossible if your company has ever dipped below a certain line of technical debt. You can't climb out of it. You can't pay off that debt fast enough to get to get your groove back on a capitalist quarterly timeline. So anyway, this is how I found my way into being like, these are the engineering values we have always cared about. And this is our way to take them mainstream.
So to bring your engineering values mainstream, what does that mean in terms of building with
The
AI?
ability to build systems that are resilient, that have guardrails. There's an experience that a lot of engineers are having right now. Like, I've spent my whole career advocating for these things, but nobody was willing to fund them until we were doing them for AI instead of for humans.
Yeah.
Right? I hear that from platform engineers. I hear that from SREs. I hear that from front end platform engineers. They're like, ew, oh, when we were just doing this for our engineers, people weren't willing to fund it or prioritize it because it was always seen as infrastructure, not value add. Right?
But now it's for the agents. The
Now
agents
we
get.
can invest in it because it's for the agents, right? So I get where they're coming from. I really deeply do. And also, this is an opportunity.
Yeah, that's it's crazy.
We could either be sour about it or we could help blaze the trail.
Yeah. And actually, I guess that's on to kind of like the next related point around software engineers, like kind of the roles merging. And I think you have a point around where they shouldn't be software engineers should not be stressing about this.
Yeah. Software engineers shouldn't be stressing about whether their skills will be needed. Yeah, unless there are, it might surprise you, but I still encounter engineers who are averse to framing what they do in terms of return on investment or value add or and while I deeply get that purity streak in people because I used to be one of those engineers, this is one thing where I think you need to get over it. It does not serve us for engineering to be seen as the artistes of the org who you just have to trust. And one of the places that this plays out most vividly, I think, is when it comes to engineers hate for their output to be measured in any way. There's this whole DX and swarming and even I would like to feel like engineers at Honeycomb have a fair amount of emotional safety. There's everywhere I see a lot of, well, it doesn't work because blah, 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 and while it is absolutely true that there are different ways of creating value, capturing value, and it is absolutely true that many companies have misused these metrics, and I get why there are scars. We have to be willing to look at our output and talk about it and be like, in the language of the business, and the lowest common denominator is time and money, right? Which we can convert to some extent one into the other. Engineers don't need to worry about their skills not being useful, but it's the nature of technology that's the way they constantly need to be change, evolve, mature, and more than ever, I think we need to get comfortable with talking and thinking about them in terms of the business.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that makes sense. Also very aligned with what your all your messaging as well, right? Where it's not just your number of nines don't matter if you're not creating user value. All your messaging is around this sort of thing, right? And
it is. Yeah.
Yeah. And I feel maybe it's the same. There's it's not just writing some really nice, clean code. It's just
I mean, it's lovely if people love these things, but in software, we have for a long time been extreme outliers historically in the world at large, and that we get paid to do what we love for a living, And I don't know. I can't predict exactly how the world's going to change, but some of this is changing, and there's room for that love, but we can't work backwards from that love.
Yeah, you got to find where to find the love when you're optimizing from the business value.
When
It's
if
depressing.
we want to continue being paid high, three
Mhm.
figures, three figure, six figure salaries,
Yeah.
um, yeah. And I do very much want to keep getting paid a high, I do want to keep getting paid a lot of money. Very, very much.
Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah. 100%. Um, well, actually, so that does bring me on to another question. So I have, these are not prepared ones, but I do have a lot of dev tools questions as well. I think the first one, I'm probably going to say some buzzwords here, and I apologize in advance. But I think that you're, if someone had to say an example of a DevTools founder who's like created a huge personal brand and like leveraged that to like many buzzwords to grow their business, I feel like you're probably one of, if not the best example.
Oh,
You've
you're
been very
killing me.
prolific at, how have you been able to, I think people get stuck on, I've seen this, I do it myself. Like it's so easy to get stuck on like, just you're a CTO of a very difficult company, like, a hard engineering problem, right? Like be very easy to just spend all your time just on internal stuff, I would imagine. How have you also been able to, create all this content and really put out such a big message at the same time, which is the sort of thing that usually might be someone that was a dedicated marketer and probably would still struggle to have that kind of an output?
The honest answer, number one, I feel like I stopped. I moved off X. I wasn't really putting out the last couple years, and I have realized that that was a mistake. Despite my personal feelings, I am trying to ramp back up because company needs me to. Um,
Mm.
Most of the past year, I actually spent working on this second edition of the book, so I'm emerging from that, and I'm trying to. But I hear what you're saying, and you're not. So I'll try and keep my personal self-flagellation out of the answer. Uh, I know what you're saying.
Yeah,
Uh,
the humility is coming through.
I should have made so many different decisions, but that's for my inside voice. Um, like the honest answer is, you ask any engineer at Honeycomb. I'm not really present in the internal engineering. I've only been able to do it because I absolutely trust that they've got it handled. You know, and this is honestly, this probably would not have played out this way, but I was CEO for the first 3 or 4 years.
Mm.
I was CEO for the first 3 or 4 years. Our entire go-to-market strategy consisted of any place that invites Charity to speak, she says yes. So I was flying all over, constantly jet lagged, constantly on Twitter. And, Emily Nakashima was our first front end engineer, and she stepped into that position. She's still here. I couldn't do it. I couldn't do what I do without her. And like our partnership just being, and the engineers we have, they're just like, they care about the craft, they care about the culture, they care about our users. We've always selected for very pragmatic business, customer focused engineers who are not. No one at Honeycomb was like, ew, marketing or ew, sales.
Mm.
They understand they're there to build a business, and I respect them deeply. So I am not in the engineering day to day, and I always forget that people probably assume that I am. There's no way you can do both. You just can't.
So it's like you're setting the leadership. It sounds like, does the writing and stuff as well? I guess it's like for the internal team as well.
Anytime you want people inside the company to really pay attention to something, say it outside the company.
Why is that? Is that just, is it?
Because everyone's conscious of the image and their identity. And, I can drop a post internally and people will, they might not. But if it's something I've set out externally, everyone is paying attention, but some people are. And then they often bring it internally. And did you see what Charity said outside?
Mm,
And so it just has more currency.
yeah. Well, their friends message them like,
Yeah,
"Do you guys
yeah,
really do this?"
yeah. Yes, exactly that. Right? Yes, exactly that. And then they have to
Interesting.
represent it themselves, and it's a whole thing,
Mm. Yeah, that's really cool. Yeah, that makes sense. And I suppose the writing is the thinking as well and
The
all that
writing
sort
is
of
the
stuff.
thinking. You know, this guy, William Zinsser, he was a longtime New Yorker editor. This book is at least 50 years old. I don't know. One of the things he talks about is writing is just thinking on paper. And he talks about how you should be able to write yourself into an expert knowledge of any domain. If you're curious, if you're humble, if you talk to people who do know their shit. And
Mm,
I I very much found this to be true. I find out what I think by writing about it. When you look at it, it's external. Is that there's a hole in that argument. That doesn't make sense. I need to ask someone about this because this doesn't, it's a way of
mm,
making sure that what you believe is consistent and grounded. So, in fact, funny story, not so funny. It's been a miserable winter. Um, in working on the second edition of the book, at first I didn't really want to write it because I was like, I've been writing about observability for almost 10 years. Is there anything left to say? And I should know this by now, but of course there is. Oh my God. I learned so much about, cost structure and POCs. And
mm,
so if I can detour just a little bit and talk about my own problems.
absolutely.
So we started writing the second edition of the book. We got to get my co-authors and I got together last June and we planned out the new table of contents. And I pitched to my co-authors. I'm like, I think there should be a brand new part 6 at the very end. We'll call it observability governance. And it'll be a bunch of topics that observability engineering teams need to know about because observability engineering teams didn't exist when we wrote the first version of the book. Observability didn't really exist. So over the summer, June, July, August, September, I said I was going to write 4 or 5 chapters. I was in the last one in September, and it's about buying software. And I was like, you know what? I've never actually bought software. I should probably. So I put out a column blog. I'm like, if you've ever bought software, send me an email. Give me your advice. What do you wish you had known? Right? And oh boy,
Tidal wave.
the internet had opinions. The internet had many opinions. And I immediately entered the worst writer's block I have ever experienced. I was supposed to be wrapping up, like my original drop dead end date was November 1st. And for 6 weeks, I couldn't, I'm just get up every morning. I've got 8 hours blocked out. I'm just, maybe I'm tinkering and then I revert. It just wasn't coming. And then the week before Thanksgiving, I was up midnight fucking around with Claude, and I realized, oh shit. Everything I've written needs to be thrown out. I wrote the wrong thing. I wrote the wrong things for the wrong people. Do observability engineering teams need help? Of course they do. Who doesn't? you know? But the stories that I got from people again and again and again, like in text and subtext, they were describing a technical decision maker buying process from the top down. It was completely messed up. Just no alignment between CTOs, VPs, SVPs, distinguished engineers, principal engineers, staff engineers, directors, managers. No, they're not even trying to get consensus around what observability is, what problems, because it's changed so much. so dramatically. And their eyes have been fixed on the AI ball, right? So like one of the questions that comes up is this even still relevant? Isn't this just an IT ops problem? Isn't this solved? Didn't Datadog do it all already? They haven't updated their priors in years. And VPs and CTOs are the worst because typically they haven't really been hands-on, even if they think they are. They haven't really been hands-on for 10, 15 years. And so they still are technical enough to think they're on top of shit, but they have the opinions that they formed when they were an engineer in the trenches like a decade and a half ago. And so they're just like, I got this. They don't, they don't got it. So I threw out all the chapters I had written and drafted a new list of chapters where it starts with a open letter to CTOs about how everything that they want to do over the next few years is probably blocked now on organizational learning speed. The ability not to generate code, but to understand it and make decisions based on their understanding of it. And what do we call that? Observability. That's what observability is. And then because every term in the industry is so used and overused and copied and sales and marketing. And so we just don't even use them. Like we just talk about it from a systems perspective, like fast feedback loops, right? There are two kinds of feedback loops. There are balancing feedback loops that cause stability, and there are amplifying feedback loops that cause change. But what creates a feedback loop? Is observability. If you don't have observability, you don't get a loop. You just get shit happening all the time. Right? And if that
Yeah.
that observability is lossy, laggy, wrong, non-existent, you are flooring it with blinkers on. Like it's just not gonna work. So anyway,
Yeah.
our last chapters just went into tech review, I think today, maybe? And I'm really looking forward to the second edition coming out, but that rewrite almost killed me because I was just like, I'm supposed to be done by now.
Yeah. Wow. Okay. That's super interesting though. Yeah.
Apologize.
And
I have just
no, that was
talked
great.
my face
And
off this entire hour.
but I will just I know we're very close to time, but would you recommend like, if there's DevTools founders, if there's like a topic, obviously not observability, but there's a topic that's like very tied to their company, is it worth, writing a book for something that, yeah.
That is a great question because part of me wishes I had spent the last year writing about this in my blog instead. I would say it's worth it if it's an O'Reilly book for
Hmm.
branding and credibility. If it's not an O'Reilly book, no shade on many other excellent publishers out there, it doesn't carry the fact that our name is on Observability Engineering by O'Reilly, I think it carries weight in the industry. It gives you credibility. I'm not Which is not to say that you shouldn't write about your work. You should write about it. More people should write about their work and really commit to that because doing your work in public, being willing to be wrong in public and be open about that, I think it builds credibility with anyone, but especially engineers. It
Hmm.
holds you to a higher standard because, again, writing is thinking on paper. It is a way to accelerate working out the kinks. You don't have to build out every problem to make sure that it's worth doing or not. Sometimes you can talk and write your way through it.
Hmm.
I've given a lot of talks over the years, and I don't regret it. I Believe it or not, when I started giving talks, 2011, 2012, I could not think and talk at the same time. I got such powerful stage fright that my legs would wobble and lock up, so I'd be terrified of tripping. Like,
Hmm.
I had nightmares for weeks before I gave my first talk, and it is worth building that skill set if you're a founder or a leader of any kind. Or, like, if you it's worth building that skill set, and it is eminently buildable for anyone. But I think that the impact you leave on an industry is largely through your writing.
Charity, this is super, super awesome. Thank you so much.
Yeah, my
Um,
pleasure.
where can people learn more about you and about Honeycomb and about the book?
Honeycomb.io. I think we have one of the best technical blogs in the industry. We don't just talk about our product, we talk about this kind of stuff. I'm in the process of migrating. My charity.wtf is my domain. Currently points to WordPress. I spun up a Substack over the holiday break. It's charity.wtf.substack.com. I'm on Twitter, Mipsy Tipsy, LinkedIn, all of the social medias. The book, the first 20 chapters are already in pre-release on O'Reilly's site. The rest should be there next week or two. And we're going to be putting out some preview chapters on the Honeycomb website between now. The book, the Dead Tree version, comes out in June. So between then and now, we'll trickle them out.
Amazing. People can get a pre-order in, I'm sure. Yeah, thanks, Charity, and thanks everyone for listening.
Yeah. Thank you, everyone.